Today we're going to show you a quick little video on how to put one of our red wheel housings together for a 12x4. I'm just going to quickly run over some of the tools that you're going to need for the job, such as a 3/16 Allen key or T-handle, a 5/16, a 1/8 T-handle or Allen key, a hammer, a couple generic outer race and inner race bearing pushing tools, and also a set of veneers in case for checking the end caps, which we'll get to. And we're also going to need a 1 5/8 spanner wrench, or if you don't have a spanner wrench, you can also use a regular adjustable. Alright, what we'll do to get started is I did some of these items previous to assembly here just to speed up the time process. But what we're going to want to do is, I'm going to show you these caps here. To install the caps, you're going to want to put your seal in first, which we've already done, and then put your outer splash shield in place on top of that. Press everything together until everything's flush with the housing. Like I said, I've already put one side in. I'm just going to throw this side in so you can see. Once you've lubricated your bores, you're just going to want to insert your inner bearing cup. Just place in the 3/4 20 screws. What you're going to want to do is, it's not going to press in right away. So you're going to want to, once you get your screws installed, use your 3/16 Allen key to pull in your bearing cup. Now, I don't know if you can see this. It's going to be a little bit hard to work with here, but I'm just gently using these screws to pull the inner bearing cup into place. You're going to want to torque each screw as the cup moves into place evenly. This way you pull it in nice and even. I'll show you what I mean once I'm done. As you can see, both of these bearing cups are nice and neatly pulled into the housing, nice and flush, all three screws nice and tight. Next, what you're going to want to do is, since we did all that, we're going to start talking about the bearings and getting the bearings pressed onto your sleeves for installation. I've already taken the time to press these bearings into place here. What we do is, you're going to want to take both sets of bearings out of that packaging, place both bearings face lettering side to lettering side. That's the way that the thrust angles indicate on the bearings themselves. Once they're placed lettering side to lettering side, slip them both onto the sleeve itself. Then, using an inner race tool, simply slide over the top. Using a press both bearings on until they're properly seated on the sleeve. Like I said, on both of these, I've already done that on both. This way it'll just move us forward into actually preparing to put these bearings and sleeves in. Now, right before you put the bearings on the sleeves, what you're going to want to do is, you're going to need the encapsulating nut that's going to go on the top. Just going to want to thread this nut down all the way until it's seated onto the bearing. Then, using your spanner wrench or 1 5/8 wrench, you're going to want to put it on there and just gently give it a couple wraps with a regular rubber mallet, or you can even use a regular hammer if you so choose, just enough to snug the nuts on. You don't want to go way too tight and crush the bearings themselves. That's one. We'll do number two. Make sure you have, before we go any further, just make sure you have both openings or slots on the nuts facing upward so you can grab it with the wrench. Like I said, just give them a couple light taps. just enough to keep the nut from holding yet not crush the bearings. And that's both of them. Now we're ready to install them on the shaft itself. So what I like to do is just flip them over, give both sleeves a nice general coating of oil. 10W30 or, you know, generic motor oil is more than fine for this, more than sufficient. Nice coating. Then you're going to want to take your shaft, stand it upright. You're always going to want to leave the shaft, install the side, sorry about that, install the side of the shaft that is the flat portion first. This way, once you go to put everything all together, it'll slide all together real easy and it'll be a one-shot deal. So what you're going to want to do is install your O-rings first. Once your O-ring's installed, what you're going to want to do is just take the shaft end first. Just let it gently slide down into the sleeve, push down, make sure it's seated all the way to the bottom like it is there. Now, like I said, sorry for jumping around a little bit, but the reason why I wanted you to put the bearing on that side first is because usually you're going to have the housing tipped or it'll be in the machine with the operator side facing you. So this is going to be the side that's going to hit last. So you're not going to want to have a bearing pack on that side first, which is one of the reasons why I put that bearing on there first. I should have explained that earlier, but I do apologize. Next, make sure your wheel's installed inside your housing. If it's on the machine, you're going to want to slip it in, lettering side towards the operator. Next, with the bearing on the one side, you're going to want to slip the bearing through all the cups in the wheel. It might take a little maneuvering to get it to go. Just be gentle, try not to scratch the shaft up. Now, as you can see, I hit on the other side of the table, so we're right there at the end. Now, what I like to do here is, once you get your bearing touching the housing like this, just give it a swift hit or two just to kind of seat the bearings. Now you can go about this two different ways, and I'll show you and demonstrate right here, depending if you have a press or not. You could use an outer race tool here. This is a brand new housing. By giving it a couple taps here and there, we'll set the bearings in. Or if you have a press, which we do right behind us here, because you could also use a press to press this bearing in, such as like this. Take your outer race tool, take your housing here, set it up on a press, take the outer race tool, just give it gentle pressure enough to get the bearing all the way seated past the lip of the housing itself. Then if your shaft sticks out a little bit on that one side, just give it a tap back to center. You'll see it line up in the keyholes. Next, we'll do the next side. You're going to want to take your next side O-ring, just slip it over the shaft. Just push it down until it actually falls into the groove that's on the shaft. You'll feel it drop in. Likewise on this bearing here, little lubrication to start off with. You can also gently wipe this shaft down if you feel there's a little dirt on it or a burr. Install your sleeve, just go nice and gentle. She should just slip right on like that. Once again, I like to use the outer race tool just to gently seat the bearings. And once again, we can take this and put this right back into the press and do this side. go, like I said, once, just till they crest below the actual surface of the housing. Alright, now at this point, once again, just tap your shaft back. Now that both sets of bearings have been installed, what we're going to do is we're going to install the end caps to hold everything together. The easiest way to do this is, what I like to do is just come in with your 3/16 wrench, move your screws, all three of them. So what you're going to want to do is take one of your bearing end caps here, just install it onto the housing, put your screws back in. And as you might notice at this point in time, that the cap might be hanging out a little bit, maybe the bearings aren't pushed all the way in. Well, like doing the inside bearing retainers, what you want to do is once you put these 3 screws in, and begin screwing these down, crank them down nice and even. What will happen is, likewise on the inside bearing cap, is these will push and center the bearings for you. Light and gentle will pull them right into place, as it did on this side here. Now, before I go any further in installing the other side of the bearing cap, is if you go to put these bearing caps on, now you'll notice that there's a recess here with a lip on the inside. Now, if this inner lip, this here against the recess is too thick, what will happen is as you push the bearings in, this will not fully seat itself up against the housing. So what you're going to have to do is take your veneers, and I'll show and demonstrate on this side. Take a pair of veneers here, and what you're going to want to do is just gently take a measurement from the outer bearing race to the face of the actual housing. Get a general indication. Here we have 84. Then what you're going to want to do is just come down to your outer cap here and measure this inner lip. Like right here, believe it or not, we actually have 84, 83. So out of that, as long as you're smaller on the bearing cap itself than the gap that's in here, this should fit all the way down. If it doesn't fit, you're going to need to trim these down. You can put them in a lathe. You just want to put them into a machine or Bridgeport, just something so it'll be all machined nice, flat, smooth, and even all the way across. Once you come down to the equal measurements, then you can install your cap. This one happened to fall right in, and so did this. This is a brand new housing, but if you're installing new caps like this on an old housing, they might not fit. You might need to trim them. Each housing is a little bit different in casting, so, and machine work. Likewise on this side, I'm going to do the same as the other. Remove all 3 screws. Install the cap. Replace the screws. Do the same on the other side. Use each 3 screws to pull the bearings down and recenter them. Nice, even, and gentle. Like I said, once again, this cap measured up nice and evenly, so it sits perfect up against the housing. Alright, now that that's all said and done, what you can do is if you have brand new O-rings like these H314s, install them, just slip them right over. The gap might be big enough for these. If not, all you have to do is just come back, gently crack your 3 outer screws, and that gasket should fall right in. like this. Perfect. Do the same on the opposite side. Might have to just give it a little tap to loosen it back up. There it goes. Should fall right in. Alright, now that we got all of our seals and end caps on, what we're going to do next is, you'll notice on each housing, for time savings, I'm not going to go through it all, but you'll notice that there are a set of 1/4 holes on here. If you have a set of set screws that came out of an old set of caps, or you have a brand new set of set screws and you have these holes, what you're going to want to do is install your 1/4 set screws, which you'll use just to keep pressure on this cap and keep the cap locked a little bit tighter than the head bolts. Some of these caps, if they're older, might not have them. If they don't have them, don't worry about them. But if your new housings have them, install them. They're just to hold the caps tight. If you forgot them, it's not a big deal. Some guys run them, some guys don't. Depends on what you feel. They really just keep support against the bolt holes. I'm not going to do it for now, just to save a little bit of time and get into the next step. Now, coming into the actual portion of the housing where we're going to be indicating, you're going to want to put your retaining rings on your sleeves. They contain the 4 screws on both sides, and these are used to retain the actual shaft inside the bearing sleeves. And these are also going to be used while indicating this housing, which I'm going to go through once I put these caps on. Try to work it step by step. You know, you can change up steps as you go, here and there, whatever feels more comfortable to you. Like I'm sure someone's saying right now on the other side of the video, when do you tighten up the reg wheel? Well, I was going to do that right before we indicate it, but each and everybody's a little bit different. Alright, now that we got our end caps on, now I'm going to go ahead, just tighten up the reg wheel, get it centered on the shaft. At this point in time, what we've done is we've already marked the shaft itself of where the actual flats on the shaft are. I don't know if you can see them, but they're quite faint. Just 2 marks of where the flats are. This way, we can just spin the shaft into place and lock the reg wheel before indication. Now what you're going to want to do is, while tightening your wheel down on your first screw, once you find your flat, you're just going to want to give the wheel a wobble as you tighten the set screw, just to make sure that that set screw's touching centered on the flat of the shaft. And once you find the flat in the center, you can tighten all 4 of them up. Alright, now that we got all 4 tightened up, you can see here's our assembled housing. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to take a walk out here, and if you can bear with some of the noise outside in the shop here, I'm going to show you how to quickly indicate this housing in. It's just going to be a real quick review. I'm not going to go crazy setting it through. I'm just going to describe what we're going to do to it. So if you guys don't mind bearing with the noise, we're going to walk out here in the shop because I didn't have the space, and I'll quick throw it up on our alignment fixture. Now this is a fixture we've had here outside just for indicating these in, but you can also do this on the machine. with just the actual angle bracket and your actual mic. So if my cameraman will follow me outside real quick, give you a quick demonstration. Alright, now that we got our housing on our fixture, you're going to want to install your nuts and bolts. Sorry for the bell there. Once you got your nuts and bolts installed on your housing, and it's tight up against the thing, what you're going to want to do is on both sides, it doesn't matter which side you do first, is stick your indicator mic on the top of the shaft. You can set it to 0, or you can set it to any spot you so desire. Then once you get it set up on there, you can set 0 it or leave it right where it is. And what you're going to want to do on both sides of this housing and on both sides of the shaft is just rotate the shaft. You can use a wrench on the one side, or if you have a special holder, spin the shaft and tighten and loosen each one of these screws until you come to about a 1/2 tenth on your indicator. We like to go to a 1/2 tenth. Once you do that on both sides of your wheels and you get everything all centered up, your housing's indicated, it's finished, you can put your caps on it and seal it all up and get it ready for running. If you have any questions, you can contact any one of us here at Royal Master, whether it be a service tech or an assembly tech. We'll be glad to help you out in any way possible. Thanks for viewing, and I hope this video helps you guys out today.